No, Germans do that? Wait, Germans really own those?
You're saying that Germans don't actually enjoy this? Yeah, there are some crazy things that America taught me about Germany before moving here. Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie, and along with my wife Aubrey, we are two Americans currently living in Germany with our baby and sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe. Often, we have people who assume that we moved from the US to Germany 3 years ago because we hate the US or the politics drove us out of the country. When in fact, this isn't the case at all, and nothing could be farther from the truth. We've talked about this in many of our videos, but basically, I studied abroad in college in Germany and loved my time here, but wanted to dive deeper into learning about and experiencing a different culture than mine. Every country in the world has false ideas and stereotypes about other countries, and one of the most interesting and exciting things about living amongst a different country and culture is learning the truth firsthand about those places. Now, after living in Europe and specifically Germany for the past 3 years, I have really probably only started scratching the surface, but what lies have I discovered I was told about Germany that aren't true? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today in our video. Liar, liar, pants on fire. It's the German truth that I desire. Now, here is often the problem with videos like these. And in particular, of course, Germany is filled with extremely wide-ranging cultures, politics, social norms, etc. And even in the US, sometimes in the same state, you have a very wide-ranging experience with politics, cultures, religion, etc. So just know, when I say these things, it is particularly based on my personal experience growing up in Oklahoma in the US and now living in Rheinland-Pfalz. But let's start with the first lie that I was led to believe, and that is that these are just accent marks and aren't really necessary. This is something in fact pointed out to me first a few years ago on the comment on a video that we made in Germany before we moved here, in which I had spelled German words without the umlauts because simply I didn't have them on my keyboard. Well, I guess that also is a lie, because even though American keyboards don't have umlauts just out available, easily accessible, you can simply type them by holding down the letter and then selecting them. But I think this may come from a lack of understanding of foreign languages, and Americans see these letters under the umlauts and think that native speakers of the foreign language would look at it without the 2 dots and just know what the word is because it's the same letter. However, to give you an example, this and this are 2 completely different words. Technically, the German alphabet has 26 letters just like the English alphabet, but with 4 extra characters as well, I guess you could say. But yes, the umlauts are actually very important and not just simply showing an accent. Oh, and also, this is not a B. When you see any depiction of Germany or its culture, what do you almost always see? In the US, and honestly I think a lot of the rest of the world, Germany has an image of a beer guzzling country, and in some ways I wouldn't say this completely is a lie, but in some ways I think it is. So yes, Oktoberfest is a huge deal. Also, most of our local festivals do kick off with a mayor tapping a keg, and nearly every region in Germany will have a local beer that they stay very loyal to. However, as our friends over at My Merry Messy Life put it in a recent video, beer isn't the only drink Germans enjoy. Today I've come to the Mosel Valley. We can already see beautiful vineyards behind me in the Mosel River, and I'm going to be doing a vineyard and winery tour that I booked with the sponsor of today's video, Get Your Guide. Now, we've told you about the German Weinstraße in our region before, and also the world's largest wine festival that takes place in Bad Dürkheim every year. So to show you how important wine is in Germany, let me show you a different wine region in Germany in this video. So far on the tour, we have learned a lot of really interesting things, but one of the most interesting things that we just learned about when we talk about the importance of German wine in Germany, he was saying that the German government actually restricts how many liters of wine they're allowed to gather from individual vineyards to make sure that the quality of the wine stays really high and that the quality won't go too low because of mass production. So
German wine, I guess, should have extremely high quality if you're getting some of it.
As we drove here, we drove through miles and miles, or maybe I should say kilometers and kilometers of vineyards. It didn't take long to realize that wine is king in our region, and Germany is within the top 10 largest producers of wine in the world, and 60% of the wine produced in Germany comes from Rhineland-Pfalz. On this tour, we learned not only about how important wine is to Germany today, but also how deeply rooted the tradition of wine production is in Germany, and specifically the Mosel Valley, as wine has been produced here since Roman times. On this tour, we learned from seed to bottle everything that goes into wine production, and for example, why the geography of the Mosel Valley makes its Riesling wine so unique and spectacular. The tour ended with a phenomenal 3-course meal with 2 accompanying wines per course to teach how to perfectly pair wine with food, which was taught by a genuine German sommelier. With wine being such an important part of this region in Germany, one thing I highly suggest people do when visiting Germany is to do a vineyard tour like I am doing here in Ellens-Pulzersdorf. Doing a tour like this one with Get Your Guide allows you to hear from knowledgeable local experts like these at Weingut Basten. Get Your Guide offers over 60,000 curated experiences in more than 3,600 destinations worldwide, and they make it incredibly easy to search an area you're going and booking a unique experience. Like for this trip, I knew I wanted to show you guys a German winery, so I just searched for experiences in Germany, filtered the interest to drinks, and found exactly what I was looking for. We've used Get Your Guide for tours for years from Spain to Poland because it is so easy to book and you are able to cancel up to 24 hours in advance when your travel plans change. If you guys want to check out this specific tour for yourself, I can highly recommend it, and I will leave a link in the description so you can book it on Get Your Guide. But while you're there, go ahead and check out all of the thousands of great tours that they have, and you may find one in your area. Along with the abundance of wine specifically in our part of Germany, another thing that has really surprised me is how often we see Germans drinking alcohol-free beer. When Americans think of Germans drinking all of the beer they drink, we are under the impression that Germans just simply have a culture that completely surrounds around drinking alcohol. Another point that drives this idea that Germans are obsessed with alcohol is that the drinking age is so much lower in Germany than in the US. And well, sure, alcohol does play a part of the German culture, but at the same time, I do see a lot of alcohol-free beer being drunk regularly in Germany, and this is a huge highlight of the difference in drinking culture in the US versus in Germany, I think. If you're German, I would love to hear in the comments why/if you drink alcohol-free beer, but from my perspective, I do believe that Germans drink beer purely for the enjoyment of flavor a lot more than Americans would. In the US, drinking beer is primarily about drinking the alcohol for a lot of people, and therefore drinking alcohol-free beer is pointless or sometimes even seen as non-masculine behavior. Now, drinking alcohol-free beer in Germany is supposedly a rather newish phenomenon though, and according to theguardian.com and an interview they did with a waiter from a German cafe in 2019, I'd estimate that every 4th beer I sell these days is non-alcoholic. That's a big change even from 2-3 years ago. This article even quoted the German Association of Brewers, DBB, as saying, now as many as 1 in 15 beers consumed in Germany contains no alcohol. It's no longer considered shameful to ask for an alcohol-free beer. On the contrary, it seems it's even becoming something of an accepted lifestyle drink, and the stigma is more or less gone. One thing highly valued for much of the US is a house with a yard. We are often led to believe that in Europe, homes are smaller, tighter put together, and therefore everybody is packed in on top of each other, and having a yard is something we are lucky to have that Europeans just don't have. I think this has a lot to do with the images we are typically shown of Europe, which look like this or this. Even more so, when Americans travel to Germany, they are usually going to places like Munich or Berlin or Nuremberg, and therefore they are really only seeing tightly packed old cities, and even then they aren't seeing the outer non-touristy parts of the city where people are more spread out, which then reinforces this idea. Now, the structure of German towns and countrysides are for sure different, and homes generally are smaller than in the US, and there are a lot of different reasons for that. And although you don't have the suburban sprawl that you have in the US, you do still find homes with yards in Germany quite often. Sure, not everybody is going to have a yard, but not everybody in Oklahoma will have a yard either. But for example, our German house has both a front yard, a backyard, and a side yard. Size is relative to whether someone would think it is large or small, but I did a Google Maps measurement of our property and our house sits on approximately 7,800 square feet of land. So overall, the idea that Germans don't have space where they don't live on top of each other in yards isn't true, and it can feel somewhat similar to US spaces sometimes. The next thing that I was led to believe about Germany, and probably most of Europe as a whole, is that there are no guns in Europe. Boom, wow, here I am talking about umlauts and alcohol-free beer, and then I slam down the GUN word. Yeah, this is a super political topic, and to many of your disgruntlement, I have no interest in talking about politics on YouTube. So all I literally want to say is the simple fact of I have been very surprised to see how many shooting clubs and hunting blinds are all over Germany. Now, I don't think I actually have ever heard anybody in the US specifically say to me, Germany has no guns, but with the political nature of this issue in the US, I do often feel like the idea spread is that the US is unique in that it allows gun ownership, period. And in particular, if you go to Europe, you won't find them. According to a DW article from this year, around 1 million people in Germany legally own a total of more than 5 million firearms. Most of them are sport shooters, hunters, or foresters. There is one side of our town that if you walk around it, it isn't entirely uncommon to hear gunshots ringing around town as shooters at the local shooting club do some target shooting. Also, nearly everybody that comes and visits us from the US are just as shocked as we were when we first moved here that in our area, it is nearly impossible to drive more than 10 minutes without coming across 1,000 hunting blinds throughout the countryside. Now, a reminder, Germany has a population of a little over 83 million people. So don't let me make you think that there are more gun owners in Germany than there actually are, but simply there are guns. And that is all I want to say about that. To see who made it this far into the video, the random question of the week is, do you peel a banana at the stem or hold the stem and peel from the bottom? Thanks so much for watching, guys. Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and we will see you in our next video. Technically, the German alphabet has 26, whoops. So you know how important wine is in... And to many of our to many of your disgruntlement, think I actually have ever had any...